Hello and welcome to In Depth. I'm Tina Jha. 26 November 2019 marks the 70th anniversary of the adoption of the Constitution in 1949. It was on this day in 1949 that the Constituent Assembly adopted the Indian Constitution, an important landmark in the country's journey as an independent sovereign republic. One of the oldest and the most enduring, the Indian Constitution serves as a powerful emancipation proclamation, ending centuries of discrimination, economic, political, and social exclusion for the millions of people. It describes the fundamental political code, structure, procedures, powers, and duties of the government institutions. It also explains fundamental rights, directive principles, and duties of the citizens. On the show today, we'll talk about directive principles of state policy. Mentioned in Part 4 of the Constitution from Articles 36 to 51, directive principles constitute a very comprehensive social, economic, and political program for a modern and welfare state. But what are its features, classification, and amendments to directive principles is what we are going to analyze today. Besides, we also focus on how they affect and direct state policy. Borrowed from the Irish Constitution, the makers of the Indian Constitution incorporated the directive principles of state policy in Part 4 of the Constitution, from Article 36 to Article 51. The directive principles are a mixture of various subjects that embraces the life of a nation. These directives are not recognized by the courts, but the principles are considered fundamental in governance. Hence, it becomes the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws to establish a just society.
The directive principles of state policy are guidelines to central and state governments in framing laws and policies. These provisions are contained in Part 4 of the Constitution of India. They are not enforceable by any court, but the principles are considered fundamental in governance. It becomes the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws to establish a just society. These principles were non-justifiable in view of the fact that the state may not have resources to implement them.
See, directive principles of state policies speak about the ideals, speak about the policy, the overall policy which the government should follow. And although Constitution says that these are not implementable, but that view has changed now. The court has said that these are guidelines to the government, and these are to be incorporated in the legislations which it makes. These are goals towards which the government has to move, and these are goals which should govern, which should inform the government's actions.
These principles indicate that the state will secure and protect a social order in which justice, social, economic, and political shall form in all institutions of national life. Accordingly, the state policy will be directed at securing for citizens adequate means of livelihood, equal pay for equal work within the limits of its economic capacity and development. The state will also seek to secure the right to work, education, and public assistance in the event of unemployment, old age, sickness, and disablement. It shall also endeavor to work for a living wage, humane conditions of work, a decent standard of life, and full involvement of workers in management of industries.
When you are laying down the fundamental rights, and those fundamental rights are actually unchangeable, and this cannot be amended in its core form, cannot be amended. But then certainly as an object, as an aim, as a goal, certain principles will have to be laid down for a government which provides welfare measures, and a government whose aim is to provide welfare to the people. Naturally, they will have to set themselves certain ideals, certain goals, and those goals are set out in the directive principles of state policy. So it is necessary.
Directive principles of state policy aim at achieving social and economic democracy for a welfare state. While the Constitution does not formally do so, directive principles can be classified into three categories. Socialistic principles that lay down the framework of a democratic socialist state. The concept envisages social and economic justice so that state progresses towards a welfare state. They direct the state through Article 38, Article 39, Article 39A, Article 41, Article 42, Article 43, Article 43A and Article 47. Gandhian principles that reflect the program of reconstruction enunciated by Gandhi during the national movement. Some Gandhian ideas are reflected through Article 40, Article 43, Article 43B, Article 46, Article 47 and Article 48. Liberal intellectual principles incline the state towards liberalism through Article 44, Article 45, Article 48, Article 48A, Article 49, Article 50 and Article 51. With inputs from Mohammad Tipu, Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Directive principles are described as not being enforceable by any court, but are nevertheless fundamental in the governance of the country. They are called by various names, including directive principles of state policy, fundamental principles of state policy, fundamental objectives, and sometimes even national objectives. Let's look at how they have been translated into state policy.
Socio-economic transformation based on the principle of social justice was a key objective for India's constitution makers. They aimed at creating a society where a citizen, in addition to having economic and political freedom, will also have dignity of the individual. Directive principles are non-justiciable rights and have to be seen in this context. Thus, if the preamble is the key to understanding of the Constitution, the directive principles of state policy are its basic ideal. These ideals are economic, which the Constitution makers wanted the state to strive for, directions to the legislature and the executive as to how they should exercise their powers, and lastly, directions to the state through legislative and administrative policy on securing to citizens certain rights that can't be enforced like fundamental rights.
These are ideals, these are goals which are to be achieved. But many of them cannot be achieved at one stroke. There are very good things said in that. Now, child welfare, women welfare, labor welfare, and the disparity of income between the rich and the poor should be reduced and all that. Now, these are some of the goals which have been set out. But to achieve that, we have not been able to achieve that. For example, the difference in income between the rich and the poor, the gap between the rich and the poor has not been bridged. We have not been able to do that, but we have been able to lift the people out of poverty. A very substantial number of people have been lifted out of poverty and all that. So these are goals which are to be achieved in a long run. That is the significance of these directive principles of state policy.
There are many instances of the application of the directive principles in government policy. These include opportunities and facilities for children to develop in a healthy manner. This has found expression in the program of universalization of elementary education and the 5-year plans. The 86th Constitutional Amendment of 2002 inserted Article 21A to provide free and compulsory education to all children aged 6 to 14 years. Promotion of education and economic interests of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other weaker sections. Organization of village panchayats, separation of the judiciary from the executive, whereby judiciary has been separated from the executive in almost all states. Promulgation of a uniform civil code for the whole country. Article 44 of the Constitution provides that the state shall endeavour to secure for the citizens a uniform civil code throughout India. Protection of national monuments, promotion of justice on the basis of equal opportunity, provision of free legal aid. Legal aid at the expense of the state has been made compulsory in all cases pertaining to criminal law if the accused is too poor to engage a lawyer. Protection and improvement of environment and safeguarding of forests and wildlife of the country, promotion of international peace and security, respect for international law, treaty obligations and settlement of international disputes by arbitration. Given that directive principles reflect the aspirations of the people, they are affirmative instructions from the Constitution to state authorities.
The Manrega scheme which has come, Manrega scheme is in fact basically giving employment to the people in the rural area who are unemployed. I think this kind of rights, the directive principle of state policy, although they are direction to the states with regard to the economic rights of the individual, although are not enforceable strictly speaking, but as per the legislations now being made after the economic development of the country, they are becoming enforceable through legislation as well as through various decisions of the courts.
India borrowed the directive principles from the 1937 Constitution of Ireland that made a distinction between the fundamental rights and the directive principles of state policy. In India, the idea of the division of rights to be incorporated in the Constitution into justiciable and non-justiciable rights was for the first time envisaged in the report of Sapru Committee in 1944-1945. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Time for a short break on the program. On the other side, we'll talk about amendments to directive principles. Do stay with us.
Million people have now given the thumbs up to Rajya Sabha television. RSTV's growth has been phenomenal, with the journey from 2 million to 3 million being completed in less than 6 months. That's over 6,200 new subscribers every day. Our online viewers are engaging with us more actively. Every day, thousands like, share and comment on our videos. So come and join this growing tribe of RSTV viewers and get ready for an exciting journey.
Watch The Big Picture with me, Vishal Dahiya, at 9:30 p.m. on Rajya Sabha TV.
Welcome back. You're watching In Depth. So unlike the fundamental rights, the directive principles of state policy are non-binding in nature, which means they are not enforceable by the courts. Although the Constitution itself declares that these principles are fundamental in the governance of the country and it shall be the duty of the state to apply these principles in making laws. Hence, they impose a moral obligation on the state authorities for their implementation. Since independence, several amendments have been made with regard to directive principles. Let's analyze a few significant ones.
In order to amend the directive principles of state policy, a constitutional amendment is required, which needs to be passed by a special majority of both houses of parliament. After independence, there have been a number of amendments to the Constitution, some of them related to the directive principles of state policy. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment in 1976 made 4 changes in the directive principles of state policy. Firstly, it amended Article 39 that obligates the state to secure a social order for the promotion of the welfare of people. It added Article 39A, which makes it the duty of the state to provide for equal justice and free legal aid to the poor. It was by virtue of this article that the Parliament came up with the law called the Legal Services Authorities Act 1987. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment also added Article 43A to secure the participation of workers in the management of industries, and Article 48A to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard forests and wildlife. The 44th Constitutional Amendment was brought in 1978. It added Article 38, Clause 2, which directs the state to minimize inequalities in income, to eliminate inequalities in status, facilities and opportunities, not only amongst individuals, but also amongst groups of people residing in different areas or engaged in different vocations. The 73rd Constitutional Amendment in 1992 brought panchayats in Part 9 of the Constitution. It was meant to empower rural local bodies with decision-making abilities, revenue generation, and independence in expenditure. The 74th Amendment, passed in consonance with the 73rd, tried to mandate and establish systems for growing cities. The 86th Constitutional Amendment 2002 inserted Article 21A in the Constitution of India. This article provides right to free and compulsory education to all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years as a fundamental right. The 86th Amendment Act also changed the subject matter of Article 45, providing for early childhood care and education to children below the age of 6 years. A new directive principle of state policy under Article 43B was added by the 97th Amendment Act of 2011 relating to cooperative societies. It requires the state to promote voluntary formation, autonomous functioning, democratic control and professional management of cooperative societies. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
The fundamental rights, directive principles of state policy and fundamental duties are sections of the Constitution of India that proscribe the fundamental obligations of the states to its citizens and the duties and the rights of the citizens to the state. They comprise a constitutional bill of rights for government policy making and the behavior and conduct of citizens and are considered vital elements of the Constitution. While fundamental rights are defined as the basic human rights of all citizens, directive principles of state policy are the guidelines for the framing of laws by the government. So let's now understand in detail the correlation between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy.
Fundamental rights and directive principles had their origins in the Indian independence movement when the goal was to achieve the values of liberty and social welfare of the independent Indian state. The demand for civil liberties were an important part of the Indian independence movement, with a major objective being to end discrimination between British rulers and their Indian subjects. The Commonwealth of India Bill, drafted by Annie Besant in 1925, specifically included demands for 7 fundamental rights: individual liberty, freedom of conscience, free expression of opinion, freedom of assembly, non-discrimination on the ground of sex, free elementary education, and free use of public spaces. Several of these provisions were later replicated in various parts of the Indian Constitution, including the fundamental rights and directive principles.
Fundamental rights are only the political rights. And so if you are talking of economic rights, they are given in the directive principle of state policy. And when the constitution framework were conscious enough at that time when we got independence, our economic condition was not that good that we should have given the directive principle of state policy the same status which was given to the fundamental rights, because these are direction to the state. So as and when the state found that it is in a position to protect economic rights of the individuals, more particularly the social and economic weaker sections of the society, only then this enforcement business started, and now even the courts also indirectly are enforcing these rights. Take for example, if you have to get a clean environment, now the court is saying that state should take action for clean environment, enforcement of the clean environment.
The fundamental rights embodied in Part 3 of the Constitution guarantee civil rights to all Indians and prevent the state from encroaching an individual's liberty while simultaneously placing upon it an obligation to protect the citizen's rights from encroachment by society. The purpose of fundamental rights is to preserve individual liberty and democratic principles based on equality of all members of society. Fundamental rights act as limitations on the powers of the legislature and executive, and in case of any violation of these rights, the Supreme Court of India and the High Courts of the states have the power to declare such legislative or executive action as unconstitutional and void. However, fundamental rights are not absolute and are subject to reasonable restrictions as necessary for the protection of public interest. On the other hand, the directive principles of state policy embodied in Part 4 of the Constitution are directions given to the state to guide the establishment of an economic and social democracy as proposed by the preamble. The state is expected to keep these principles in mind while framing laws and policies. They act as a check on the state, theorized as a yardstick in the hands of the electorate and the opposition to measure the performance of a government at the time of an election. Article 37 states that though the directive principles are not enforceable in any court of law, they are fundamental to the governance of the country and states are obligated to apply them in matters of legislation.
See, directive principles are basically a direction to the state with regard to the economic rights of the individual. The basic difference between fundamental right and economic right is that fundamental rights are political rights and they are enforceable, whereas rights given under the directive principle of state order, which are direction to the states, are not legally enforceable in the strict sense of the word. But with the development of the economy, now most of the courts are enforcing, and even the governments, because of the economic development which has taken place in the country, through various legislation, even the directive principle of state policy are also being implemented by the government.
Directive principles have been used to uphold the constitutional validity of legislations in case of a conflict with the fundamental rights, and both have been used together in forming the basis of legislation for social welfare. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
So that's it from us today in depth. We'll be back same time tomorrow with a comprehensive view on some other subject. In case you missed the television broadcast of our program, you can watch it online on YouTube and Twitter. And you can also send in your suggestions and feedback about our program. Thank you for your time.